Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining in tonight here on Connecting Hope. I'm Will Hampton along with Monica Greer from the Hamilton County Council on Alcohol and Other Drugs. And recently, I think it was back at the end of October, there was a checkpoint.
Yes.
The traffic safety group got together for that.
Yes.
Tell me about that. What goes on?
Yeah, Sobriety Checkpoint is, we advertise it in the paper a week or two before it happens, so to let the public know, to be aware that extra enforcement's going to be on the roads. It's for safety. We want people to be safe and not drink and drive or use drugs and drive. And so we do 3 or 4 a year, sobriety checkpoints, and we'll see more in the video, but different stations are set up for the cars to come through, and if they're safe to go, they're there for about a minute and then they drive off. So.
Now, your group's connection to this is through the traffic safety program, right?
Yes, I'm the coordinator for the Traffic Safety Partnership. We have a grant through the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute, and we do enforcement throughout the whole year. So it's a grant October 1 through September 30th each year. And so we do seatbelt enforcement, we do extra enforcement around the holidays, and do different campaigns around that. And we have all of the major police departments that are involved.
Yeah. Well, I was out there that night and I had a chance to talk with some of the guys involved with the Cicero checkpoint.
Tonight the objective is kind of shock and awe. To put a sobriety checkpoint in a location where people may not normally expect it or may not normally see one. People typically aren't used to seeing them a lot of times, so it is new, it's different. We check motorists that are passing through the area. We do it in a sort of very defined manner per the Gershofer ruling, the state of Indiana Supreme Court. We pull them off the roadway and check to see if they're intoxicated at all or impaired in other ways, such as drugs. And then we do further investigation, and then we transport them to the Hamilton County Jail, if need be. The whole checkpoint concept is about prevention. It's, like I said, shock and awe. It's for people to see we're actually doing something about the problem. People don't usually see us out doing saturation patrols. Okay, we're gonna have saturation patrols out this evening as well, but doing a checkpoint is a very static area, seeing a lot of officers in traffic vests, and a lot of officers in one location. Oh wow, hey, look at that. It's something, hey, that's different. So it lets people know that we are taking a proactive approach in Hamilton County toward the intoxicated motorist.
A lot of lights, camera action there.
Yeah.
but like I said, the primary focus is to help people realize that you can't drink and drive.
Yeah. And what's interesting, the last several years, we've seen a lot of Uber and Lyft drivers come through the checkpoint. So it's the word is out, and most people are making the right decision and not getting behind the wheel impaired. So.
Yeah. And without your phone in your hand, that's another one they're looking for.
Yeah,
yep,
definitely.
Exactly. Well, we've reached that favorite time of the show, time for one of our success stories. And this week, we introduce you to part 1 of Sean's story.
I remember at one point, my mom and dad were still together, and I think I was in first grade. And long story short, piano teacher found out that I was pretty decent at picking up on things the same way my teachers did. So during recess, I had piano lessons. So I would like to think that kind of made me antisocial. I don't know that for a fact, but I feel like that's where it started. And then as life went on, I kind of found myself being a people pleaser. And I didn't really know who I was for the longest time. I spent 17 years in addiction. And I remember I grew up long before I matured. I started really falling on hard times in the 2000s. And in 2015, found myself sleeping behind a gas station. And I would line up 5 milk crates in a row and wrap up in this blanket that somebody just threw me out of their car window at the gas station. And I did that for about a year. I slept on those milk crates. And I remember sleeping back there feeling like I had life all figured out. And that was not the case, right? And I remember trying to play the victim, right? There was a wing restaurant over near 79th Michigan, which is where I stayed at the gas station behind. And I remember him allowing me to come in before they opened to clean up the building for a few bucks. And of course, as soon as I got that little money, it was gone. I just remember being behind that gas station. I was at the end of my ropes. I had just completely given up on life. And I was merely just existing.
Thank you, Sean, for sharing your story. We're going to have part 2 of that a little bit later in the show. But he's a good young man that's now giving back to the community.
Yeah. He definitely hit his bottom and rebuilt and has a great success. Yeah.
We're going to hear part 2 when Connecting Hope continues. Stay with us. We're back with more right after this. Welcome back to Connecting Hope. So glad you're watching here on TV 40. I'm Will Hampton along with Monica Greer, and now joining us in studio is Brandon George with Mental Health America, Indiana.
That's right.
Good to have you here. And I admit, we did a little advanced interview talking with you two. You are perhaps the busiest guest we've ever had. You have a lot going on, don't you?
I think that everybody's got a lot going on, but yes, I don't think I'm an exception to that.
Yeah, amazing. Great work that you guys are doing.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on. Everybody is going through the COVID crisis. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with you and how things are going with that.
Well, I think COVID turned everything upside down for everybody, right? All of our organizations, regardless of industry, had to examine how they're doing business. And when it comes to substance use disorder, treatment, recovery, we were no exception. And in some cases, I think we had a little bit further to go. A lot of the infrastructure, telehealth-wise and stuff, wasn't necessarily in place. And I think it's going to impact our people a lot more maybe than some other demographics. And what I mean by that is there's a famous saying out there that the opposite of addiction is not recovery. The opposite of addiction is connection. And think about this for a second. If the solution to addiction is connection, and we're in the middle of a pandemic with COVID where they say, everybody stay apart.
Yeah.
It's opposite solutions. You know, to fight the pandemic, we need to stay away from each other, but you've got people suffering from addiction that really need that connection. And so we really all put our heads together trying to figure out, you know, how do we combat this? There's 500 social support meetings in the greater Indianapolis area that all completely shut down. And we didn't have 500 because there was only a few people going to them. We had 500 because we needed 500.
Yeah.
And so part of that response was, one of our programs is called the Indiana Recovery Network. And it connects recovery organizations from all over the state. There's about 75 of them connected, share best practices, they communicate with one another. And some of the groups on there immediately started doing online peer-based meetings. And so still have that right now, Monday through Friday, 3 times a day. You can get online and go to a meeting that is led by a certified peer recovery coach. And so we thought that was a really big piece. A lot of our justice system folks, a lot of folks that were used to taking advantage of these meetings no longer had them. And so getting an immediate option out there was a benefit. A lot of our friends in the 12-step community stepped up and eventually were able to switch over to some online stuff. But that was a big piece of us trying to help out there. And then the recovery hubs. Governor Holcomb made an announcement in August about the Regional Recovery Hubs project. And Monica, you had asked me earlier about peer support, and that's really where this comes in collaboration with Next Level Recovery, Doug Hunsinger from the governor's office and Director Chaudhry from DMHA. They funded peer supports at 14 recovery organizations around the state.
Wow.
Goodness.
Yeah, and so we really have, during COVID, with all these systems kind of at bandwidth, right? Treatment centers aren't operating normally. 211 went from like 1,000 calls a day to 25,000 calls a day. And so the bandwidth of all these systems was really being stretched out. And they asked us, they said, how do we mobilize the peer workforce? I said, well, we need to use the existing recovery organizations and fund them to let them do what they do. And that's what they did. They stepped up to the plate. There's a lot of regulation around telehealth and things that prevented us from delivering service that were pushed aside, not just for us, but for all the treatment industry. And so we got that up and running in about 2 months. It's been going for about 4 months now. And we got coverage for all 92 counties. So you can connect to a peer support regardless of where you're at. Pick up the phone, hit 211, call 211, and hit the recovery coach option. And we'll get you connected with a peer regardless of where you're at in the state of Indiana.
Wow.
And 25,000 calls this time as opposed to...
Yeah, a couple thousand before. It was over a tenfold increase. And so what happened is you had 911 being bombarded with things that weren't, emergency dispatch. People are losing jobs, benefits, healthcare, evictions. And so they started routing everything to 211, and then 211 was trying to route stuff to as many partners as possible. And so peer support are the resource brokers by nature. That's what they do. Yeah. They connect people with resources. And so...
And they're in recovery themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those are the two major benefits from peer supports. One, they can establish trust with somebody else in a very short amount of time because they've been there before. They've got that experience. Yeah. And then resource brokers, because they've been there before. Yeah. They know what to do when one door closes and they need to find another. Yeah. And so creating that access point on 211 to where if it was SUD related, there wasn't necessarily treatment, maybe they need a recovery residence, maybe they need to find some meetings that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. All my meetings are shut down. What do? They can connect them with the peer support right away. And then they can help ease the system for the other stuff. When people are calling for food pantry, when people are having other calls that aren't SUD specific, it helps clear up some of that bandwidth issues.
Substance use disorder.
Yes, substance use, alphabet soup, I apologize.
So that's great. So policy-wise, what's going on other than the hubs? Anything else?
So every year during this time, it's getting, everybody's starting to get ramped up for the legislative season. It starts formally in the end of November, but everybody gets to the State House beginning of January. And there's a lot of anticipation about what's going to happen this year with COVID. The restrictions on the ability for people to meet. The summer sessions this year, they limited who could testify in front of the committees. If you were invited by the committee specifically, you could go there and testify. Otherwise, it had to be done remotely. And so they're making decisions on that for this upcoming year. We're really hoping there were some specific things changed for telehealth around delivering services, some rules and regulations that were set aside during the governor's proclamation or emergency declaration, should I say. And I don't know how we're going to go back because everybody's getting used to the telehealth now. And it pushed us forward in a way we needed to, but our policy hasn't caught up with it. The only reason we're able to do it is because of COVID right now. And so we've got great advocates, state leaders that wanted to stay in place. So I think that's going to be a big topic of conversation. But I think we're also going to be hard-pressed to talk about, we're not going to talk, I don't think, much about anything that's not budget-related or COVID-related, even within the SUD world. I think that obviously with the state shutting down for several months, there's massive loss of tax revenue, the gaming stuff was down, and I don't know if people know, but some of the gaming tax is set aside for addictive disorders. And so there's going to be budget issues, I think, for everybody, and that's probably going to be a main topic of conversation.
Are we so fortunate to have Brandon in Indiana?
And I feel like we're just scratching the surface here, but unfortunately we're out of time. Well, hey, when we continue this show, can we get you to come back a couple times?
I would love to. Anytime I can get the word out about ways to get people connected to care and get help to folks or awareness of policy that can help, I'll be the first in line. So.
Great.
211 and then follow the prompts, basically.
211 and hit number 6, connect to a peer afterwards.
There you go. Brandon, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We're back with more Connecting Hope after this timeout.
So my name is Jim Ginder and I'm with Hamilton County Health Department. I'm the health education specialist at our office. What I'm going to do today is to show you how to deal with somebody who possibly overdosed on an opiate. So what we're going to do before we do anything is we need to make sure that the scene is safe because I do not want to become that victim. So we have our mannequin here, so he's unresponsive. So first of all, I'm going to make sure the scene is safe. Then I'm going to come up and shake and shout, hey, are you okay? You're okay. He's unresponsive. I'm going to pull out my cell phone and call 911 or have somebody with me call 911. Then I'm going to put my head down by his mouth and nose, then also on his chest. And what you're doing is you are listening and you're feeling. so you don't hear anything and you don't feel the rise and fall of the chest. So you're gonna take your Narcan or naloxone. I'm gonna open it up. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take it out of the package, stick it in one of his nostrils, put it in as far as you can, push the button until the button is all the way flat with the device. Then what you're gonna do is you need to flip them over. And the reason why you need to flip them over, there's a pretty good chance that they're gonna start to vomit after that Narcan starts to work. It takes about 2 minutes for Narcan to work. Roll him back over if you don't see him breathing again, and give a second dose as well. Just remember, when you give Narcan, a lot of times the person will vomit. So that's the reason why I flipped him over. And also that the person can be a little combative when you wake them up. But hopefully the police will be there by the time you need to give that second dose of Narcan, or by the time that the individual starts to wake up as well too. Thank you very much for watching how to take care of someone who has possibly overdosed on an opiate. If you would like more information, you can visit our page at Hamilton County Health Department, which is www.hamiltoncounty.in.gov. Then just hit Health Department, and you can send us an email, or if you're interested in obtaining some Narcan, we can also provide you some Narcan as well too, free of charge.
Welcome back to Connecting Hope. Will Hampton along with Monica Greer from the Hamilton County Council on Alcohol and Other Drugs. And we've had a lot of great success stories, but we're getting ready for part 2 of one that we both really like.
Yes, yeah, Sean. Yeah, a lot of skills.
Sure does. He has a lot of skills, and let's listen to it. Part 2 of Sean's story.
I remember going to some psych wards down in Eskenazi, and I met this one person in particular who thought it'd be great for me to come and stay with them for a few days. And during the course of those few days, I tried something that I swore I would never try. And later that night, it was the first snow of 2015, and this person actually walked with me 28 blocks to get me into treatment, and that was at Harbor Lights. And I will never forget feeling so grateful, because they were going to just put me back out. And the temperature dropped a couple more degrees, and they said, "You're lucky, we can't let you leave. We don't have a bed right now because our detox manager is not here. But if you want, you can sleep in the janitor's closet." And I just remember feeling so grateful. After my 3rd time of being in jail, I realized that I had to do something different. And I went to court probably about 24 days after being there, and they released me on a controlled release on house arrest. And I just remember begging my family for me to come stay there for a couple times. And I remember going to Progress House for some meetings when I was in the Salvation Army. And I was like, I'm gonna go to Progress House. And I made that my sole goal, and it's the first time that I ever accomplished something. An amazing friend of mine, he was like, I'm gonna make it happen. And about 5 days later, I found myself in Progress House. And then the miracle just takes off from there. And I went through Progress House in January of 2018. They asked me if I would like to be hired on as an employee. And I always wanted that from day one. I wanted to be able to help people. My aunt has done our family ancestry for years. And I come from a long lineage of people who have served their purpose. And I always wondered what my purpose was going to be in life. And the moment that I quit thinking about that and I started to just help people because people were helping me is when I found out what my purpose was going to be. And I've been sober for coming up on 3.5 years. I've been sober since 2017. And May 6, 2017. And looking back then, going, you know, because of the relationships that I was able to build, I've always been great at talking to people. I've always been really great at talking. I could do it forever. And because of Progress House showing me how to build relationships and healthy relationships and maintain those, I mean, here I sit today. I work full-time at a treatment facility. I'm also a real estate agent with FC Tucker in Carmel, Indiana. You know, I went from homeless 5 years ago to being a homeowner, to being able to sell homes and help people get into homes. And I've always, when I started helping people, I found out that that's my purpose. That's what I was intended to do, was to help people, whether it be as a Mason, right? I applied to become a Mason, I got denied. And I started using my communication skills, seeking other people who are involved in this organization, and I found someone who got me in. And so now I can help other people that are Masons. And as a Shriner, we can help kids who don't have insurance and need some type of surgeries and things like that.
As you said, Monica, Sean, so many talents, so many things he can do.
Yeah.
Should have had him play the piano while I was here.
We should have. Why didn't we think of that?
Yeah, just a great guy. And again, he's piling on success stories one after another, things he's accomplishing.
Yes. And he's so motivated to accomplish all of the goals that he set for himself and his family, and just motivated me to do more.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
We thank you, Sean, for your commitment and for your story. Back with more Connecting Hope after this. And welcome back to Connecting Hope. And I know one thing, Monica, that I do each and every week is learn. And Brandon George from the Mental Health American Indiana was on our show earlier today. There's so much going on there, and he's just scratched the surface.
Oh, he's amazing. You mentioned one thing, and well, let me see what I can do about that. I mean, he is just busy all the time, but always wanting to help. He's just such a neat guy.
And the phone number that he mentioned a couple of times, 211, simple as that, to get some help. Hey, before we wrap up, we haven't done this any time, but we should have. Wanted to thank the folks here at TV40, Jeff Elliott, his entire crew, from Dave to Rob, who is the editor, the editing magician for this show, and also, of course, Jerome, Joe, Greg, all the people who have helped with Connecting Hope. It's been a lot of fun. It's still a lot of fun.
And George Christo for our table.
Yep, table looks good.
Yeah.
Table looks better with you than it does me.
Oh, really?
I don't know why, but thank you for being here, Monica.
Thank you, Will.
All right, we're going to close out this edition. We do thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Connecting Hope.